Back. Monsieur Anber.
Monsieur Cassava, what's happening, brother?
Not much. The Chicago Bears hired a new head coach and general manager this week. Hence the hat. It's a new era for Bears fans, long suffering. I know you love NFL, correct, Russ?
It's a new era hat or a new era in football? Which way were you pointing?
A new era for the Bears, not for the hat. No.
Oh, it's not a new era hat.
No, I don't believe so.
That's the company. You know that.
It was one of the companies for a long time. I do know that. So that's, there's a few things I do remember, and I do know. I have some knowledge.
And also we learned about the dispute. So with a so-called dispute between the Cincinnati Reds and the Chicago Bears as to whose logo was the original logo. So
that's right. We talked about that a little bit as well.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And the difference in the two that might I don't know if you noticed it, but the difference at the end, how the Cincinnati Reds is symmetrical and this one is different. The top and bottom is different. So very interesting.
Yeah, and thank you everyone again for joining us on the Calling Russ Anber podcast. We're gonna have Dan Birmingham on the show, the trainer of Keith Thurman. We're going to have to take a rain check from Dan. He's preparing and we have a bit of issues to connect, but he's obviously preparing for the big fight next week for Keith Thurman's arrival. We'll get a chance, his return, I should say, Keith Thurman, as he's going to be able to take on Mark Barrios. Russ, we're going to get to Thurman next week. And I think I said, what did I just say? Did I say Mark Barrios? I think that's wrong. Scratch that. Mario Barrios.
Mario. Mario. Yeah. Well, we knew what you meant.
No, exactly. But I was saying, what the heck is Mark Barrios? Mario Barrios next week against Keith Thurman. We'll have time to discuss that fight on next week's podcast. We have some topics to get to, of course, this week. So, Russ, first and foremost, do you want to address the latest with Tyson Fury, or do you want to go into a bit of the action of this past weekend and the Gary Russell fight?
Listen, you're the brains of this operation, so this is your call. You know, you just have me here to offer my little opinion, which everyone seems to have these days in the world of social media, and I am now but a mere other who has an opinion. So whatever you want. I mean, I'm happy to go either way. I definitely do want to talk about Eddie Claudio, the referee in the fight on the Gary Russell undercard, which I know has stirred a little controversy. So definitely want to talk about that. But in any order you like, brother.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So let's start with Tyson Fury as the big news, because it looks like he's going to be fighting Dillian Whyte, even though the last time we spoke, we knew that the Fury-Usyk fight had a possibility of happening because of Anthony Joshua potentially agreeing to step aside and waiting to face the winner of Usyk-Fury as long as he was guaranteed a shot of the winner. Fury has been for maybe about 2 weeks now making comments with videos almost on a daily basis, trashing Whyte, Joshua, Usyk, calling them different things. We know Fury is kind of a antagonist and he's good, of course, with the trash talking, but ultimately, he elects to fight Dillian Whyte. So it looks like we're going to be back to the original plan, which is Usyk-Joshua rematch sometime in the late spring, maybe early summer. But what do you make, Russ, of everything that happened, especially with Fury? We talked a little bit about how he was dismissing Usyk, calling him a steroid cheat because of the fact that he's been able to move up from cruiserweight to heavyweight and become a world champion, despite the fact that there's, of course, never been any evidence, any test positive at all for Usyk. Fury just kind of throwing that out there. Now, after saying, let's go, Usyk, take the fight, but Usyk is waiting on Joshua to sign the agreement of the step aside, Fury elects to fight Dillian Whyte in an all-UK showdown. What do you make of it?
I don't know what to make anymore of the boxing world, Matt. The thing that bothered me, I think I'm reflecting on this thinking, there's enough money to be had that you're able to give somebody like Anthony Joshua, great champion, has always conducted himself in the best way possible. You're able to generate so much money that you can give somebody 15 million pounds, or that's what they say. We don't know. We're not at the table, so we don't know if that's true. But that's saying you can give somebody 15 million pounds, which works out to over $20,000 US.
That was the amount that was reported, right?
20 million, I should say. Yeah, I don't.
We don't know what the official amount would have been for Anthony Joshua to agree, but that's the number that was thrown out there.
That was the number that was thrown out there. That equates to over 20 million US dollars to give to somebody to not fight. Think about that thing. And there would have had to been money paid to Dillian as well. Because if the fight would have gone through,
Probably, Yeah, it's a
So
good point.
that means there would have been another, I heard, £5 million that went to that. So you're talking in excess of almost 30 million US dollars, 30 million US dollars
Yeah.
for two people not to fight. Now tell me there's not something wrong in the world of sport, in the world of boxing, when this is the money that you can just throw away and give to people. Forget that the undercard is only going to be getting paid. You know, some guy's going to get paid $5,000 and $10,000 and $20,000. Forget the undercard where that's going to make no money after fighting. These guys are getting paid not to fight. And it just, I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore. Like, these numbers are just astronomical for no reason. And
well, we don't know why
I
it
don't
ended up, though, not being the step aside and Fury electing to fight White instead. And Tyson Fury, to the report of Mike Coppinger on ESPN, he's saying that there was greed involved between Joshua and White about the amount they were going to accept to take a step aside fee. So essentially, maybe Fury said, and the Fury's camp, screw this, we're just gonna go ahead then and fight Dillian White instead directly and let Joshua fight Usyk again. That's what it seems like.
I don't know. I just think that we keep setting precedences in boxing. And I think the real fight people understand this, you know, the ones who take the financial risks, who put the money up, who put the shows on, who lose money on other shows in order that other shows make money, who keep the boxing game going, who allow fighters to fight. They're going to understand that we're reaching a point now that is going to be very difficult to come back from, because you have fighters now making more money than they ever made, than they're going to make even when they're champion. Before they're champion, they're making money. They're calling shots before they're champion. The market is out of whack in terms of what money is being paid. Now, am I against guys making money? Of course I'm not against guys making money. That's what the whole reason you're in the business of boxing is, to make money, is to try to grab that, you know, that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. We know that, but it's out of whack. And this economic structure can't continue. It can't keep working like this, where you have a group of people, let's say in the heavyweight division, where I just said two guys possibly almost making 20 million US dollars to not fight. And then you've got other people fighting, defending titles, fighting for titles, making not a tenth of that. That's wrong. Something is wrong. You know, that balance is skewed. And I don't know what to think anymore about it. It's just gone nutsos.
And what about Fury, Dillian White? If that fight is, indeed, the fight is going to happen next.
I think Fury, if Fury, in fact, took the Dillian White fight, I think in between, if he had to choose one, he wasn't getting Joshua because there's no belt there. So he doesn't take Joshua, although the money might possibly be there. So he has to choose between Usyk and Dillian. He took the easier fight.
No, wait. So you're saying it's Fury? You think in your mind it's Fury who made that choice?
Well, no, this is what I heard. I heard that it was Fury who said.
Yeah, but what we're saying now with the latest reports at the time of recording this on Thursday evening, Fury is saying that because Joshua wanted too much step-aside money,
yeah,
the Usyk fight wasn't an option anymore.
We don't
understand?
Know.
Because, well, that's what's kind of being insinuated.
But that's easy to say. I don't understand why that becomes a Fury factor. It's not him who's paying it.
Well, no, look, Russ, Joshua, if he declines to take 50 million to step aside and waits to get 20, 25, whatever the amount is, so then they go, well, listen, we can't pay you that much to step aside. So Fury says, screw it then. You guys fight, and I'll go fight Dillian White.
But I don't know that that's Fury's call to make. Again, I don't know that that's because Fury. It would be Matchroom who has to make that call of whether what they're going to pay Fury, Joshua to step aside. I don't. If Fury is guaranteed his purse, gets his money that he's supposed to be getting, it shouldn't matter to him what Joshua was getting. So that's
I don't think it's the amount that bothers him. I think it's that because it's stagnating. It's taking too long to decide. So he says, okay, I'm not going to wait till Joshua makes up his mind on a crazy amount. I'm just going to go ahead and say, Dillian White, you want the fight? Okay, it's signed. Let's go. Let's fight and let Joshua rematch Usyk, and I'll wait for the winner.
I don't know. I think it's speculation because now we could get to another problem. Dillian White, now they have to go to purse bid. So now what if it comes up that and the purse bid is an 80-20 split, I believe. Dillian might not be happy now with 80-20 split. So, this could be another wrench in the works. Maybe that's part of the...
But if Fury's saying that he's fighting White next no matter what, maybe that doesn't get to the purse bid. Maybe they've already come to an agreement because there was supposed to be a purse bid tomorrow, Friday, and it seems to keep on delaying. Now, look, again, caution here.
Speculation.
No, I mean, at the time we're recording, things could change in 24 hours. And in that case, we'll reconvene and we'll address, because there's nothing officially, there's no fight date official. There's no everything seems to still be kind of based on Tyson Fury's interpretation of things, based on some of the reports and what Eddie Hearn's been saying. So at the time of the recording, Fury is saying he's fighting Dillian White next because because Joshua is taking too much time to decide on the step-aside fee. And then Usyk and Joshua are going to rematch. That's where things stand as of this evening.
The reason why I'm skeptical about this is because it just looks like it's a shot at Anthony Joshua again from Tyson Fury, and he's just been throwing shots at all of them all the time. So I'm looking at the source, and it's not credible. I don't just believe that this is Tyson now preaching the truth and what he's saying is right, and it's Anthony Joshua's fault. I'm not sure I believe that. There's too many more things that are important, and we know that Dillian White doesn't want to take an 80-20 split on the purse bid. So you're going to go to the purse bid knowing that the WBC has mandated an 80-20 split, but you know that Dillian doesn't want to take only the 20%. So it's so convoluted. It's ridiculous, the problem in making this fight.
Let's go more into in boxing terms, in the ring, and the aspect of the fight itself instead of the monetary aspect of it. Does Dillian White stand a chance of upsetting Tyson Fury if they do indeed face each other next?
Look, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting local heavyweight fight for the UK, but I don't think it generates the interest that Usyk generates, or even Joshua for that matter, of that it interests. He's the low man. I mean, he was knocked down by Oscar Rivas. There's the cloud surrounding him about the gloves that about his B sample. There's all kinds of stuff, and he was knocked dead by Povetkin. He was knocked senseless by Povetkin. But I don't know, man.
Since that terrible knockout loss in 2020, he had one win, of course, in the rematch against Povetkin in March of 2021. So it's going to be about a year since he last entered the ring. He's 34 years of age. I think he's going to be a significant underdog if he fights Tyson Fury, because
of course he'll be a significant.
Dillian White is not as good of a puncher as Deontay Wilder is, and he has strong power. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, he's not.
He doesn't have a stronger right hand than Deontay Wilder.
No,
and he's more polished, though, you could argue, but I'm not so sure he's going to be able. If Fury fights the same offensive style as we've seen of late, he could probably stop a Dillian White. Yeah,
he probably could. Look, Matt, I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore of this situation. You come out trashing people, calling them all kinds of names, then blame somebody else because the fight's not happening. You don't want to fight Dillian for any kind of money because you're leaving more money on the table for either Joshua or Usyk. The Dillian White fight certainly is not going to generate more money than Fury against Usyk. Now, will it? There's not a chance. Now, here's another thing that's very interesting as well that was brought to my attention. And the reason Usyk got the shot at Anthony Joshua was because he was undisputed cruiserweight champion and moved up a category. WBO rules state that when you move up to a weight class as champion of the preceding weight class, you're automatically instated as the #1 mandatory contender. The fight he had with Joshua, really there should not have been a rematch clause in that because he was the mandatory. The only reason he became the only reason there was a rematch clause put in was because in the event that that Usyk camp didn't accept the rematch clause, Joshua would have given up the WBO title and there wouldn't have been a fight. Well, Usyk would have had to fight somebody, whoever it may be, for a vacant WBO
but Joshua brought other belts to the table besides the WBO belt.
Right, but he'd have given that belt up and not fought Usyk. So because he was the mandatory, and in order for it to be for all the belts, he accepted the fight on the condition that there was a rematch, which was
Right, to get
which
the
was
other
not,
belt.
yeah, for the other belt. So I mean, it was certainly the right thing to do, and it was played out well on both parties' behalf because no one knew what was going to go on with Wilder and Fury either at that point. So it was the right thing to do. You just now, you're having chances. We're seeing chances slip through our fingers. And we go back to a few years when Eddie Hearn offered Wilder $13 million to fight Joshua, which was basically 10 times more money than he had ever received for any fight before that. Turn that down. Then we had an opportunity that we were going to see Fury against Joshua and possibly the titles being unified. That didn't happen.
Now, at the last minute, Fury won. Not Fury. Wilder won the appeal to get the third fight against Fury, and here comes. And that's how Usyk, despite the fact it was mandatory, that's how he got to get the Joshua shot.
Correct. So like this thing is all played out. I mean, credit to Joshua and Usyk. At least they said, okay, we're fighting. Boom, deal was done. No problem. Like there was you never expected this thing not to happen. Here, you're expecting it every time Fury has fought, whether it be Wilder, possibly Joshua. You don't know. You don't know if it's going to happen. It's always somebody else's fault. It's never his. You know what I mean? It's never his issue. It seems to be an arduous task, even in the things he's said on social media, calling out Joshua, saying he doesn't know how to do business. Him and Eddie Hearn are the worst businessmen. I don't get it. None of it makes sense. It's nonsensical. So, I don't know what to think anymore. It's beyond me. Like these numbers are beyond me in what they're doing. And Fury, to his credit, has always said this is not about the money. This is about his legacy, about who he wants to fight. Well, if that's true, then your legacy lies in Oleksandr Usyk, not in Dillian Whyte.
But not if Joshua says I'm not stepping aside. Then Fury can't do anything about it. But I do think that Usyk Joshua as a rematch is still the best fight that can be made in the heavyweight division. It's not Fury Usyk.
It is.
And it's going to be a heck of a fight, especially if Joshua, we talked a little bit about this last time on the podcast, if Joshua is serious about his redemption, his new training. I mean, and Usyk even more comfortable as a heavyweight champion, less pressure in a sense, maybe more depending on your point of view. But this has all the makings of being a heck of a fight.
But think about that, though. Usyk and Joshua are taking part in the best heavyweight fight, and the supposed guy who calls himself the best heavyweight that ever lived, is not. And I don't know that you can't come to an agreement with Anthony Joshua. Anthony's surrounded by a lot of great people in his team, who have managed and guided him to make him arguably the most popular fighter in the game, certainly in the UK, without a doubt, the biggest ticket in the UK, and maybe only second to Canelo worldwide, not Pacquiao not included, of course, second to, right? Like in terms of his drawing power and what he generates, he has good people behind him. He's not stupid to turn around and throw that kind of money away. I don't believe there would be, unless there's something I don't know, it doesn't appear that there would be a logical reason to do that when you're in the business of making money, like we say, when you're going to get a shot at either one of those guys again. And the Usyk rematch.
Or the competitor in Joshua may not want to wait to get the step aside. Because listen, if Joshua agrees to the step aside, the money is one thing. But you talked about how Fury is unpredictable. Let's say Fury beats Usyk. Is he guaranteeing to go fight, turn around, and giving the fight to Joshua? No. Even if he signs it, does he really feel like he's going to owe that to Joshua? Because he didn't lose to Joshua. You know what I mean? So Usyk, I believe, would honor the Joshua rematch if he were to beat Fury. But then the question becomes, if Usyk fights Fury right away and beats Fury, but it's a great fight, do you go in the Fury rematch or do you give the Joshua rematch? So I can understand where maybe Joshua goes, hey, wait a second. If I want the belt back and I really believe I can beat Usyk, I want that fight now.
Yeah.
So that part, maybe we'll get our friend Eddie Hearn. Maybe Eddie Hearn can join us down the road here and discuss these things. Or maybe we can talk also to your friend, of course, Usyk's promoter.
I'd love to. I'd love to see what they have to say about this. Let's see what happens. This isn't done yet, okay? I don't believe it's done yet. I'm going to hold out hope that something else, another card is left to be played, in the hand. And that's not the last ace that was thrown. Let's see. Let's see when the Dillian Whyte fight gets made. Let's see if it goes to purse bid. Let's see if they do it without purse bid. Let's wait and see.
Right.
Before we jump the gun.
Because and I think the great point is that when it involves, especially in this day and age in boxing, when it involves the best fighters in the world, it's never easy. Because case in point, Canelo. A few months ago, it was a done deal, apparently, out of nowhere with the WBC convention. He was moving up to cruiserweight to fight Makabu, who's coincidentally fighting, I believe, this weekend or in a few weeks at the most. We thought that was the deal after Canelo had won against Caleb Plant. Now, there's reports that he was going to go back to 175, maybe 168. And Mike Coppinger from ESPN and others are reporting that Canelo at the moment is either going to fight Jamal Charlo on PBC with PBC, or he's going to fight Bivol at 175 with the zone and then fight Triple G, provided Triple G beats Murata in his next fight.
It's hard to even believe that Triple G is still relevant in that conversation.
Yeah, I know you don't want to see Triple G fight Canelo again, but I guarantee it's one of the biggest fights that can happen.
Yeah. But the time is certainly has not been kind to him now since fight number 2. The distance in between the two is not making him any younger.
No,
I'm not saying I don't want to see it. I'm just saying that there's a lot of miles in between the last fight and this one.
No, without a doubt. And we have to wait and see what Triple G looks like. He hasn't been in the ring much at all the last few years. So Canelo's been much more active, and who knows if that would happen. But my point being is that there's a lot at stake with these big names. When there's these big money fights, it's not always 1 week it's one thing, the next week, and then sometimes it changes a matter of hours, let alone days and weeks. So to be, like you said, we'll see what happens in the heavyweight division. But at the moment, it looks like it's Fury-Whyte, Joshua Usyk rematch. And Canelo is either going to fight Jamal Charlo at 168 or he's going to fight Bivol at 175. And I look forward to in a few weeks if we can get the opinion of Arthur Beterbiev or some people in his camp, including, of course, our friend Scully, about how there doesn't seem to be any shock to anyone that Canelo is not talking about or rumored to fight Beterbiev next.
No, of course not. And neither is Bivol. Now, if you were to talk about a light heavyweight matchup, of course, Canelo at any weight, because of who he is going to be a big ticket fight. But is there a bigger fight to make right now in the light heavyweight division, Canelo aside, than Bivol against Beterbiev?
Okay. What network is it on?
Don't ask me this, man. I don't.
Well, that's why. Well, I'm telling you, the business of boxing, convoluted as it is, Beterbiev is with Top Rank in ESPN. Bivol is with DAZN. But Canelo's a free agent, so he can fight on whatever network he wants. That's the difference. That's why you're not having Bivol and Beterbiev. You're not going to have a crossover bout for they don't bring enough money on the table for both networks to be involved.
You know what's funny? We always say how boxing is its own worst enemy and boxing shoots itself in the foot. It's not. It's TV that's ruining all of this. It's TV that's ruining boxing. It's not.
Well, maybe,
it's networks that are ruining boxing. That they even in the day when promoters had fighters, and one was a Don King guy and one was a Bob Arum guy. Okay, they still fought each other. Now it doesn't matter about the promoter. You don't even worry who's the guy's promoter. You worry about who the broadcast partner is, who the network is that he's going to let you fight. That's how insane this has gotten. That's how stupid this is.
But I can't just blame the networks because networks are involved in other sports, and there's not a negotiation for the Super Bowl of, they're not agreeing. The winner of Chiefs this weekend is the playoffs in the AFC Championship. It's not like, okay, the AFC refuses to play against the NFC in the Super Bowl because of the networks. Like, it doesn't happen. They're able to make it work.
But
so it's not just the networks.
I know. But it's
also because some of the boxing people are not too bright of always putting themselves in these positions where they're not willing to be open and fighting on other networks. But it's a combination.
It's the networks that stop them from doing so.
Well, not all the time, because we've seen it with Top Rank, and there's been compromises on some cards, including Wilder Fury.
Pacquiao and Mayweather, they finally got that
one was on both networks. That was a rare.
It was on both networks. They weren't happy that. Okay, but put it on both networks. Who cares? You know, partner up to do it on and split the revenue because that's your fighter. What's the difference? You know, but I think they throw a lot of sticks in the spokes, you know, along the way to prevent things from happening. You know, they want it. They don't want your guy to do. I mean, in the past, you were able to make those kind of fights. It was, you know, one was WBA, one was WBC. Neither organization stopped the guys from fighting each other. You know, okay, fight each other. The promoters got together. As long as everybody made money in the game, that was the end thing. But now this is probably one of the negatives of these, you know, multi-platform champions. You know, a lot of titles. So one network gets one guy, one gets another, and now, you know, they're never unified. They never get to fight each other. The fans don't get to see the fights they should see. The hierarchy of boxing and the legacy of boxing doesn't continue as it should. And, you know, guys sit around waiting not to fight. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating.
Okay. Well, speaking of frustrating things that I'm sure you saw over the weekend, and those of you who watched the fight in the card, Gary Russell loses against Magsayo. And it was a fight that he deserved to lose, but not a fight that will be in anybody's all-time greatest hits. It was a fight for Russell also with inactivity. Apparently, he came into the fight injured also with his right shoulder, which surprised me that Magsayo didn't even try to use that to his advantage a bit more. He seemed to always move into Russell's left hand, not moving into Russell's right hand, knowing that Russell can't really use the right because of the right shoulder issue. But nevertheless, Magsayo wins the fight. Russell is one of the ultimate talents of boxing who really, I don't think, when you look at the end of his career, are going to be able to say he maximized as much as he could have with the talent he possessed. Were you in the corner with Lomachenko when Lomachenko fought Russell?
No, that was the last fight that he did with before I joined.
Okay. Nevertheless, so that was one fight he lost, of course, Russell, to the most ultra-talented Lomachenko. Hadn't lost since, but very inactive. So Magsayo wins in a featherweight division. It's a bit lackluster. And on the undercard, though, something you wanted to bring up was the knockdown. Was it a knockdown? Was it not a knockdown? In the fight between two fighters by the name of and I'm trying to say this correctly. Nyambayar, and of course Lucas and Eddie, the referee, of course, Eddie Claudio, with Jim Gray and showing the replay. We can't show it here being an audio platform, not having the rights to the television, of course, but just the basis of whether something is a knockdown versus a slip. If you did see it, if you did not see it, you can look it up in the fight. Eddie Claudio in the 8th round does not rule it a knockdown. The scorecards, because of that, of course, changed in the balance that Lucas could have won the fight if he was awarded the knockdown. Many people on Twitter and social media and the boxing fans think it was a knockdown. You actually, Russ, agree with referee Eddie Claudio.
Yes, I do. And that, again, is something that's, you know, most people today who don't know, they're under this assumption that in the event the opponent's face makes contact with your glove when he's falling down through a slip or whatever, if you touch him on his way down, it's a knockdown. I contend that that's a falsehood. That's not true. The punch has to be what causes the knockdown. And this business of scoring 10-8 rounds, oh, it's a knockdown, you know, he knocked him down. The guy's off balance when he got hit with a jab, but he stumbled and he gets hit with, goes down, oh, 10-8 round, it's a knockdown. The punch didn't knock you down. And this is why I say Eddie Claudio made the right call in this fight. Did he get hit with a jab? You know what? Did he get hit with a jab? Yes, he got hit with a, he was moving, his leg went out from under him when he got hit with the jab and he got knocked out. Was he still buzzed? Now, the argument could be no, he was still hurt from the previous shot that landed because he got hit with a big right hand over the top, okay? Could that have still buzzed him? Okay, but he didn't get knocked down there. That punch did not cause him to be knocked down. His foot was already out from under him when the jab landed. He was going down it. That's how Eddie Claudio saw it. That's how I saw it. So, you know, and I like to be consistent in these things. And I think referees, judges, they need to be consistent. The knockdown must be as a direct result of the punch knocking you down. Not because something else, not because you tripped on some guy's foot, but at the same time you trip, the guy hit you with a jab or punch you in the arm, whatever. Oh, knockdown. No, I don't agree with that. And I don't think I'm wrong when I say that. It must be the punch that knocks you down. And I thought Eddie Claudio made the right call on that fight. And Jim Gray and the rest of the Showtime crew were under this impression, like many people are, that, oh, if you get touched when you're falling down, it's going to knock down. And that's wrong. I believe it's wrong.
So you leave it more to interpretation of the referee then in that case.
That's what he's there for. He saw it. He made the call. I'll give you another example. We spoke about this earlier. We're in the center of the ring. You hit me with a haymaker. Boom! You hit me on the chin. It hurt me. I'm stumbling back. As I stumble back, I grab the top rope. Keep myself up. Knockdown or no knockdown?
I believe the ropes, if they held you up is the term.
But they didn't hold me up. I grabbed it. If there's a difference between me getting
the
knocked
ropes
down,
aren't there, you're falling down.
No. I'm sorry?
If the ropes aren't there for you to grab, you're going down on your ass.
Fine, but they didn't hold me up.
But if they're not there, you're going down. So yes, they did.
No, I grabbed them. They were there for me to be grabbed. Now, that's the same thing I said to you. You hit me with the shot that hurts me and I'm going down and I grab you and hold on to you. Why is that not a knockdown? The same way like grabbing the rope.
Because you didn't go on the canvas.
Why didn't go on the canvas the other one?
Well, no, but that's the rules. The rules, I didn't come up with the rules of the ropes being something that cannot hold you up. You can make a ruling that you can only be knocked down if you're on the canvas.
You see, that's the interpretation you got wrong. The interpretation of that rule is if the rope is holding you up, which means you get hit with a shot, your body becomes entangled in the rope. You're not grabbing on it. You're not holding the rope. The rope's holding you up because you're entangled in the rope.
Yeah.
That's the knockdown.
All
but
right.
you have the sense to grab the rope, grab your opponent, not a knockdown. And that's where a good referee makes those calls. And that's why I think Eddie Claudio, and it's not that I'm a referee lover because I'll criticize them when they make a mistake.
Really?
But when they do the right thing, they should also be credited for doing the right thing. And I believe he did the right thing. I don't believe that was a knockdown. The replay showed the way the guy's leg went out from under him. That reaction, that body reaction was not the result of a punch. Therefore, no knockdown. And people can go, you guys can go watch it on the replay. And the only arguments that we're going to get back from people as they watch this and go back and look at it, the only argument we're going to get is that he got hit at the same time his foot went out from under him. Nobody is going to say that jab buzzed him so much that it knocked him down. Nobody's going to say that.
I look forward to hearing the comments when the podcast is uploaded and people will react to you stating that you agree with referee Eddie Claudio on that one. I don't, but you've made your point.
Thanks.
So you should almost do like a boxing tutorial 101 essentially, because people are arguing about something that they're in what they think is a knockdown in their preconceived notions. They're right. But what you're arguing is that we got to review what people actually in the rule book about the knockdown itself.
Correct.
Because clearly he went down after a punch. The argument you're saying is that it's not the punch that actually caused him to fall.
That's the argument.
Okay, but just based on what people were saying to referee Eddie Claudio on social media, the brave people of social media, of course. Get ready for your notifications. I don't expect him to be kind.
That's why I love to bring up the example, and this is the foolproof example of how this thinking that people have, this preconceived notion that people have of scoring a 10-8 round. The best example you could give is to watch the Badou Jack James DeGale fight and watch the first round and the last round. Both are scored 10-8. As a result, first round of a nothing, feel out round of boxing, nothing's happening. DeGale throws a right hand with Badou, or left hand, whatever it was, with Badou squared off. It clips him, and he's kind of off. He tries to lean back from the punch, but the result of not being on balance and the punch knocks him down. Fair enough. 10-8 round. The last round, Badou batters him from pillar to post, knocks him down, beats him from pillar to post. 10-8 round. That in and of itself tells you how wrong the scoring is when you score a fight, when you score a knockdown, when you determine what is a 10-8 round and determine that punch was an extraordinary punch, that punch was so good, you merited one extra point. And that wasn't the case in that fight. That's what people have to understand, the quality of the punch. Why in professional boxing, you can have a guy who hits you with 9 pity patter punches. One guy hits you one good shot, boom. We give credit to that one good shot over the 8-9 pitter patter punches, right? Because it's the quality of that punch. That's the same thing for a knockdown.
Right, fair enough. Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, that fight is official, April 30th. We had discussed a little bit in the last podcast of 2021 about upcoming fights potentially in 2022 we wanted to see, and Serrano, Katie Taylor gets done. I think there's fair to say that this is by far and away the most appealing fight from a neutral perspective, that it's going to draw a lot of eyeballs to women's boxing, more so than any in the last few years. And
it's going to draw male eyeballs as well.
Of course. No, absolutely. Because I think that transition is already taking place. It was slow for a while, but it's certainly picked up. It's not only women who are watching women fight.
No, I know, but this is a fight now where people are going to watch, like you go out and watch a man's fight now. This is going to be two highly competitive, highly skilled, they're as good as any man, pound for pound, sex for sex, gender for gender, whatever you want to call it. They are as good as any man. Their skill level, their intensity. I wish this fight would be a 3-minute round fight. I mean, I know it's going to be action-packed for 2 minutes, but I think that
maybe they'll change the rule by then, by April 30th.
I know. The thing that's bad about it is it becomes very important when you see a fight of this magnitude, of this caliber, by two fighters like Serrano and Katie Taylor. This deserves to implicate the physical factor, the physical torment, the extra 12 minutes of fighting that you have to do, I think is massive difference and could be the difference in the fight. I think these two fighters are so good, they deserve to be treated like the men. They deserve to fight under the Marquis de Queensberry rules of 3-minute rounds with 1 minute rest in between and 12 rounds for the title. They're worthy of that, because I think what I'm worried about is this fight, because it's only 2 minutes, is going to leave it so close either way. It's going to leave it so close that there's not going to be a defined winner. Someone's going to argue that the other person won. That's what I'm worried about. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that's what my worry would be, which would be separated by a 3-minute round.
It's a great point. I actually think, I'm going to say here on the record, 3 months away from the fight, if the fight does take place April 30th, as expected, I think Amanda Serrano will win. And I don't think it will be as close as you think. I think what I saw from Katie Taylor in the last few of her fights, I'm seeing a little bit of regression. Not the case with Serrano. It'll be a great fight to see if Katie Taylor also steps up with the level of opposition and the stakes. She certainly can deal with the pressure. She has a style that will be complicated, especially if she throws the straight right against a southpaw opponent in Serrano. But I just think the volume, punching, and the power of Amanda Serrano will make the difference in the fight.
It's a hell of a legitimate argument. So just to take the other side and make think, I think the biggest problem here that Serrano faces against Katie Taylor is the volume and speed of Katie Taylor. I think everything else they can kind of match up very good. I think power goes to Serrano, I think, a little bit in this one.
Yeah.
But I think that speed, that quick execution of punches still belongs to Katie Taylor, and it's what's made her kind of her trademark. And if you stand there and you're on the receiving end of that, it's problematic. If you're able to make her reach and miss and, not be there for those shots, makes it more difficult. But if you're there, it's a problem. And I don't know many of the opponents, but I think it's going to be a new look for Amanda. I don't know that she's fought many people where she's seen that kind of overall skill. And the same for Katie. Katie hasn't seen it either, right. So I think they're both of them are going to get a look at something that they haven't yet seen in their career. Amanda, more experienced, has seen a lot of different styles along her way up, a lot of experience. Amateur career of Katie, what she's grown up, what she's carried. Like I said, this is going to be a fight that us hardcore fight fans, the way we talk about men's fight, this one's going to rank up there, and I wish it was 3 minutes.
Perfect. Final thing on the agenda for this evening, for Gary Russell, somebody brought up the fact of what's the as your experience being a trainer, Cutman in the years of boxing, inactivity in fighters. I don't think you can paint it with a broad brush and saying everyone who's inactive is going to translate to a bad night in the ring, because Mayweather used to take long hiatuses and come in fresh. And other people say it depends completely if you're in the gym or not. What's your stance on fighters? Because the people are blaming it simply on inactivity, or is there a set rule?
It wasn't for me. I think the number that they put up after the fight is indicative of the fight. You know, when you saw something like 22 jabs the first round, 24 jabs the second round, 1 jab the third round, 2 jabs the second, nothing left. This was an injury issue. The same thing like we saw with Lomachenko against Teofimo Lopez. This was an injury issue which prevented him from working at the volume he wanted to work at, because when he was working at the volume, you know, you could see this guy's a real pro. He knows what to do in there. He knew how to handle it. You know, this was going to had the makings of being a very good fight and a very difficult fight. Instead, it was a fight where Magsayo just put the pressure on, and this guy's trying to fight with one hand. Listen, Magsayo's a hell of a fighter, and he kept coming, and he kept coming, and he kept putting pressure on, and still the fight was close against a guy that fought with one arm. It's not even like he faked it. It's not like he used it for other things. All he did was he had another glove on it, but this glove is still brand new. You know, it's brand new. This one he used. So,
but would you agree?
This was a case of definitely. I mean, you could say ring inactivity, you know, affects your timing. It didn't look like his timing was off. The left hand was landing. He was slipping. He was bobbing, weaving. You know, he was doing all the right things that he had to do in the ring. I don't think activity was an issue. You could have been the most active guy in the world. That shoulder went out on you, can't use it. You're a one-arm fighter.
So, but would you say that as a rule, mostly earlier on in your career, activity is much more important, but later in your career, especially if you're a talented, accomplished fighter, you can afford to take longer periods of time off?
Sure, especially when you're fighting longer fights, you know, 12 rounders. When you're in the gym more often, when you're older and need more recuperation time from both training and fights, you know, like when you start out in your career, you know, you're fighting 4 rounders, 6 rounders, you recuperate quite quickly. And often those fights are really sometimes one-sided and you win rather easily. When you start fighting the cream of the crop, now these fights are difficult. Even when you win, your body takes a lot of punishment. You need to recuperate mentally, physically, get back in the ring, now prepare for a new opponent. Everybody handles it differently. My question is, and I wasn't there, I don't know what the answer is, but how did these guys like the Henry Armstrongs, Duran, Archie Moore, Robinson, how did these guys have Willie Pep? How did they have 150, 200 professional fights? Professional fights.
Russ, I think it's not just in boxing. Think about baseball. Guys used to pitch 9 innings all the time. Hockey. Guys used to be, you know, playing with stitches, no helmet, anything. It just seems different with the times as it advanced, even though sports science has greatly evolved. The fast twitch muscles, injuries, and joints and stuff like that seem to have completely escalated compared to what it was.
I think when you talk about baseball, I have an answer for those, right? And I could see it. But before we had this strength and conditioning and whatever PEDs that guys are using, where they're putting so much muscle mass on that their bodies can't take, the ligaments can't take the damage they give. And you had a guy like Nolan Ryan, you know, skinny guy, right? Boom, he's firing them in at 100 miles an hour, you know, no problem. Phil Niekro pitches till he's almost 50 years old, you know, without this stuff, you know, just all natural, just regular throwing, you know. I'm not sure, maybe that's the case for boxing. I don't know, but boxing still has weight categories and those other sports don't. And, you know, in hockey, if you took the average height and weight of a hockey player in the 50s and 60s and 70s and compared it today, this would be the difference. You know what I mean? Like it's not even comparable. Boxing, despite the fact of having pre-day weigh-ins, at least the guys fight each other. They're supposed to be the same size. So let's say that Terrence Crawford really should be a middleweight, but he's fighting as a welterweight, because if it was other time he'd have fought as middleweight. Still, how did Ray Robinson fight 200 times and weigh in on the day of the fight? Weigh in the day of the fight and still fought 200 times. You know, and performed, was great, day in, day out. Now, were all those guys Jack the Giant Killer? Of course they weren't, you know, but just kept fighting. Boom, get in there, fight, fight, okay, leave. 2 weeks later, he's fighting again. Okay, no problem. So they were so always ready to be back in the ring fighting, and we don't have that today. Why? Is it the money? They don't need to do it. They don't have to take that kind of punishment. I don't know. But each person, you know, varies to how they handle periods of time off. The fighters I've had and the experiences I've had in boxing, the time off necessary has not been for physical, it's been for mental, especially coming off big wins, especially coming off wins in which they were lifetime goal achievements or underdog surprise victory. You almost want to be in that moment where you're savoring it so much. You don't feel like going back into you want to savor the moment. You know, you've done this. Yeah. You want to, that's where I've noticed where the time off is needed to, okay, let's get back down there. Now you're itching to get back into the gym. That's the key thing when you're training. You have, and it seems like fighters in the old days, you know, they used to be itching to get back in the gym. Now they don't look at a gym until they have a fight date. When's my date? What do you look? What's the plan? Okay, you're scheduled for this, that. Okay, once I have that, once we sign, agree, I'll go into the gym. And they all talk about their 8-week training camp. Back in those days, they didn't do 8-week training camps. You ask Sugar Ray Leonard. I spoke to him. Hagler fight was a 4-week training camp. Now he was training before, but he's in camp. You know, the camp was 4 weeks. So
yeah, he didn't need 8 weeks.
Yeah, because they're training, right. They're ready. Leonard, think about this. We talk about layoffs. Leonard comes off 3.5 years as a welterweight and then junior middle, but as a welterweight, comes off 3.5 years to fight, not arguably, the most destructive man in the world, and wins.
Loses to according to some, but officially wins.
Even if he had lost, that performance.
I know.
So
I get it. Yeah.
There was no problem with timing. There was no problem with fatigue. Was there. You know what I mean? So
that's my point.
Everybody is different. And Hagler was a guy, Hagler doesn't win his title until his 50th professional fight. So, you know, like, and always working, and wars, Boogaloo Watch, I mean, Briscoe, wars that he's fighting. You know, work. He was a workman. You know, so everybody's different in how they handle it. You know, their belief, their mental makeup, their character, they're all different. Now, it just seems to be now, how many followers do I have? You know, who's watching me? You know, who puts comments on my page? This is what this world has become about, you know, and even to the point where fighters, when they're trash talking each other, I got more followers than you. You got more followers. I got more followers. Listen, you buy your followers. Really? This is what you're arguing about? Seriously, you're fighters. Really, you're arguing about who's got more followers. It's, I'm lost.
All right, Russ, we'll give you some time to recover. You have some time to relax a little bit this evening, and we'll be able to reconvene next week. Any other final thoughts there, Mr. Anber, before we say goodbye?
I think that was a good one. I think I've raised my blood pressure enough tonight.
Shot. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say so. Make sure to follow us, please, everybody, so we can argue about our followers as well, of course. All kidding aside, go ahead.
And what I was going to say was, you know, and sometimes we answer the comments, you know, on Twitter or whatever, or wherever they might leave them. But I don't think we've said, if you have questions, if there's something you want to know, if you have a subject you want to hear us talk about, I'm open to that. I like to do that kind of stuff. You know, I like when we have the interaction with the people who take the time to watch us and say, okay, let's do something. And maybe we can even do it where one of the guests who are on there, we pick his question, we have him on with us, you know, and he asks us the question right here and we answer it right here. I mean, it's only a link, providing you got a phone or a computer, we can get him on, right? It's not like we got to fly him in from somewhere, so we can get him on, and that would be fun.
Easier said, the link and accessing a link for some than others, Mr. Anber. So we'll let us enjoy the evening. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in to another edition of Calling Russ Anber. And maybe we'll have some heavyweight clarity by next week. Take care, everyone.
Let's hope. All right, brother. Have a good one.